Every once in a while, there's a point where you're looking in the mirror and you realize you've let go of the rope, right? You were climbing, you were ascending and, moving on to bigger, better, faster, all the things. But then life happened. Maybe you were traveling, there's disruption, you get sick, you sleep in, right? Hit that alarm clock or that snooze button and you tell yourself just this once. But I think we've been there when once becomes twice becomes three times. Suddenly, what was second nature now feels like you're climbing a mountain barefoot. Momentum is a lot like fire. It takes time to build, an effort to cultivate, energy to sustain, but only a moment of neglect to flicker out, right? And once that darkness settles in, you start asking yourself all the wrong questions. Well, what's the point? What if I don't have it in me anymore? Do I even have to live like that? What if I was really never that person to begin with? Because the mind is funny like that. It doesn't fight for your potential, it fights for comfort. It wants to take that temporary stumble and build it into a home. It wants to consistently build walls around you. In fact, I would go as far as to say, there's dissonance between where your heart wants to go, where your soul wants to take you, and where some of the most precious things in life are directing you. Your biology wants you safe. It doesn't need you pushing your limits or maxing out your potential. Societally, it's much easier to blend in, to be average. Even friends and family, the ones that love us most, right? There's innately interest in their part on you being safe and secure, which is fine. But all these things lead you to a status quo, not excellence. Excellence in my eyes is something that is derived from the self. It's a journey that you have to green light. And so where am I going with this? Well, I'm just coming out of a, we'll say, less than ideal stretch. It's not a remarkable story. It's not going to knock your socks off, but I think you'll find it relatable, right? Where a few weeks ago, everything was firing on all cylinders in, I want to say, all aspects of life, right? In rhythm, dialed in, early mornings, deep work, hitting the gym, spending time with people I care about, all things good, right? Had my hands on the wheel. And then something so small, so seemingly insignificant knocked me off course. Some type of respiratory virus. Nothing serious, enough to keep me in bed for a few days. But in that time, your discipline, focus, habits, all those things you sort of have to fight to cultivate, they can go out the window. They're allowed to unwind because you're telling yourself you'll get back on track and you need this, right? You deserve this. You work hard, right? So the symptoms go away after 3 days, but energy's a little bit down. And you're looking at the gym and you're going, you need the rest. You're looking at those creative ideas, they can wait. Right? You start sleeping in, start hitting the snooze button. And essentially an active choice to recover becomes an unconscious choice to retreat. At some point, you're not healing anymore, you're hiding. And you feel it, right? Just in your bones, there's less excitement, there's less energy. You sort of know you're lying to yourself and not keeping the word that you gave to yourself. It's a bad feeling. You start to internalize that. People follow through on who they believe themselves to be. That's why every step is so important. It's earning that confidence. It's reaffirming that commitment. And without that, life just feels like it's missing something. And so this morning, a very intentional walk outside changed everything. And I know that's anticlimactic. I know it sounds trivial. Good. That is the point. It's so easy to turn things around, right? But as Jim Rohn has said, it's also very easy to continue the same pattern and same habits. That's why it's so hard to change. Not because change is hard, but because staying the same is so damn easy. But here's the message. Here's what I needed, and here's what I'd love to offer up to you in case you find yourself in one of these slumps, or maybe just not firing on all cylinders. That chapter of life or season where you know you're leaving a part of you on the table. Here it is. Life is not about perfection. It's about returning. Our innate ability to rise from the ashes, like a tide returns to shore or the sun rises no matter how long the light lingers, like a song finding its melody after the notes have scattered. It was all there. It was never broken. The pieces existed. You just happened to step away from that fire for too long. But fires, they don't permanently die. They just need tending to. So wherever you are, you don't need to rebuild the castle. No, at least not today. And that's important to understand. That's important to know. Because if you convince yourself you have to leap a mile, you'll get discouraged and you'll quit. It's a longevity game. You need to pick up the first stone. That's the beauty of momentum. It doesn't ask for everything at once. Just one step, one action, one promise kept. And perhaps this is me standing at the bottom of the mountain again, looking at that summit as it feels so far away. My legs may be a little weaker than they were 2 weeks ago, but I know how the story goes. I've been here before. And every great comeback, from the small, seemingly trivial, all the way up to tasks as grandiose as the mind can imagine, they all start the same way. They start with choosing to begin. If you remember nothing else, remember this. You have the ability to be stronger than you can even imagine. And this is an enormous and, you have the ability to do that when life is at its worst, when things are hitting the hardest, when you most want to cower and retreat into yourself. That's when you have the opportunity and the ability to shock yourself, to be greater than you've ever been. There are certain things I do in my life to reinforce this point. That's how important I think it is. Why? Well, not to sound tough, not for Instagram. In fact, most of the time I don't share it or post it or any of that stuff. I do it for me because it's an axe that has to be sharpened, reinforced. You know, it's been some time since I've gone on a run. Like I've said recently, for those of you following along on YouTube and the podcast, you know, I've taken you along on my fitness journey. I've been more focused on picking heavy things up and putting them down, right? The gym, gaining some weight, putting on some muscle, and it's been effective. But the other day, I'm like, I just need it. I need to run. I need to do it for me. So I put on the old running shoes and did about 7 miles. And look, I knew I'd be rusty. I knew I'd be slower than I was, a year ago, obviously, but that's not the point. The only point here was negative splits, right? It was to be faster every mile than the one before it. So right out of the gate, very slow, relaxing, 9-ish minute miles, then high 8s, then low 8s, then high 7s, then low 7s, and ended in the 6s. And it's an exercise that solely reinforces, hey, when you get tired, when things become more difficult, when emotionally, you become fatigued, that doesn't mean you slow down or you give in. In fact, you can wire your brain to say, okay, this is exhausting, so I need to be better. And that's all it was. Reigniting that flame, turning that switch on. Because the same thing, running that 7 and change mile loop, is true in life. When we're most tempted to sort of retreat back into ourselves is when we must be bigger, and we can be bigger. Let's further drill this home. From the running thing, let's move to a different metaphor. Imagine with me a bridge. And this old wooden bridge is connecting two mountains, right? Moving right through a little town nestled in between them. And for years, that bridge had carried travelers and business folks and families across the deep valley below. It was sturdy, reliable. But the reality is it had never truly been tested. That is, until one year, a storm came. And the wind howled through the valley, and the river below became turbulent and rough, and the rain beat down like war drums. All the people below, they looked up and they feared that bridge wouldn't last, that it wouldn't make it. They watched from their homes, expecting any second to see it buckle, to snap under the pressure. But something remarkable happened. The weight of the storm did not break the bridge. Instead, what it did was reveal the bridge's strength. The wood groaned, but it held firm. And the ropes stretched, but they did not snap. It stood. Not because it had never faced hardship before, but because it had been built for this exact moment. And when the storm finally passed, and those people from the town below looked up at it, they didn't see a bridge anymore. They saw an entity that had truly proven itself, that had endured. And that's what we are. It's who we are, and it's what we're capable of, right? The challenge is that we don't know we can endure until we've weathered the storm. We don't understand our ability to maintain until we've held strong against the winds, until we've allowed ourselves to rise when it feels like the world's pulling us down. The storm doesn't make us weak. It reveals how strong we've been all along. And so, understand this when times are great. Yeah, why not? Put yourself through the manufactured stress, duress, and discomfort I mentioned above, when things are smooth sailing. Absolutely. But if you're in it, and I mean truly in the thick of things, right, moving through the storm, the darkness of night surrounding you, I want you to remember how much of you lives beneath the surface, waiting to be shown, to be let out, to be freed. Remember that the greatest parts of you need your permission to shine and emerge, but that when they do, nothing, and I mean nothing life throws your way, is too much to endure. Will there be turbulence and chaos around you? Absolutely, you can bet on that. But the calm and resilience within you conquers all. Always remember that. You are stronger than you think you are. You, now and always. When you lose your job and have no idea what you're gonna do next, yes, you are stronger than you think you are. When your forever person, quote unquote, ends up not being so forever, you're stronger than you think you are. When your world's tipped upside down, you're stronger than you think you are. When health issues arise, and was once, very simple, now becomes complex and chaotic and exhausting, you are stronger than you think you are. Strong enough to endure, strong enough to make it through. Again, the storm does not exist to break you. It exists to remind you how strong you've always been. I hope you find the courage to make mistakes. To fall on your face. To break things and put them back together. I hope you find the strength to move forward without knowing. A feat that is simultaneously one of the most challenging things to do in life, but also one of the most rewarding. It's perhaps my greatest adversary, reinvention. Knowing that, yeah, your time has run its course. Understanding that it's time to break and build again. But being so deeply terrified to let go. What if things don't work out? What if I lose? What if I'm worse off than I was right now because of my ambition, my self-belief, my hope for a tomorrow better than today? What if it all goes down in flames? Someone once said to me that one of our biggest misunderstandings or misconceptions is that what we've done in the past holds all our value. We can't walk away from what we've made. It's who we are. The mind says it's tied to our identity. When, truth be told, what we've done in the past is meaningless. It's symbolic. It's a mirage. It's not tied to potential or upside or what's next. Your value is not in what you've made. It's in your ability to build again. What truly shines is the warrior you've been cultivating day by day, lesson by lesson, the one who stares back at you when you look in the mirror. In fact, you eventually come to learn that what you've built, believe it or not, is an ankle weight, a false sense of security keeping you from living life. Because life is meant to be messy. Oh, it's meant to be explored. We're not made of glass, because unlike glass, we are supposed to fall apart. Unlike glass, our greatness is not transparent. It's a culmination of courageous decisions and educated risk. It's the result of knowing that things might not work out. But those odds are better than definitely won't work out. Which, by the way, is what happens if you stay where you are. If you want to stand there and defend the status quo, if you want to lay down and die on the hill of mediocrity, do it. No one's stopping you. But you'll have to be okay knowing you took your winning lottery ticket, placed it in a drawer on your desk, and you never cashed it in. That's the thing about potential. It can mean everything, and it can mean nothing. There's an old idea that people will always choose the devil they know over the one they don't. Because the devil they know, aside from being familiar, is private. It's a silent pain. The devil you know is, I could have, but I didn't. The devil you don't know, on the other hand, it's a totally different ballgame. That can be a public extravaganza. That could be a ship sinking in broad daylight. If you try and you fail, you may fail spectacularly. And by the way, to the pure joy of onlookers and your critics, what a special little hell that would be. But what if that special little hell was the door you had to walk through? And look, in so many ways, I'm a pragmatist. I'm not suggesting you give yourself a little pep talk in the mirror and then go solo climb El Capitan. But what if you understood the game? What if it clicked? And you realized that protecting the past meant a fraction of what it means to find the courage to fail. daily micro failures, small lessons? What if you started to build an immunity to hitting the ground? What if you realize that people are gonna say good things and bad things about you, and they'll do both whether you try or not, whether you extend yourself or not, whether you shoot or not, and there's pain, there's pain whether you go or stay. So you might as well feel the pain of progress. There's risk associated with being here and leaving for there, but leaving has an exponentially greater upside, and so why not go? Why not find within you the courage to fail, to depersonalize scraped knees and a bruised ego? Because reinvention requires leaving the good in pursuit of the great, and you are worthy of greatness. You are worthy of more. Yeah, for you. But lift your head up. Because it's also for those who mean the most to you. It's for the souls you will inspire along the way. And I know how daunting the task feels. Not only the unknown circumstance waiting outside, but the possibility of losing what you have now. I swear to you, I resonate with that more deeply than you could imagine, but it's time. Right now, it's time to go. It's time to take some L's so that you can use them as stepping stones. And man, I hope you find the courage to make mistakes. To fall on your face, to break things and build them again. I hope you find the strength to move forward without knowing, a feat that is simultaneously one of the most difficult things to do in life and most rewarding. Because in a life that is finite, one comprised of setting suns and ticking clocks, I promise you, you have much more to gain than lose. Dear younger me, it's been a while. And over the course of these last 7 years, there's been highs, there's been lows, there's been ups and downs. There's been moments of happiness and contentment and pure bliss. There's also been periods of loneliness and confusion and despair. Life is a roller coaster ride. But this ride teaches you something. It teaches you lessons that, in my mind, they make up the difference between existing and truly living. Between giving some of yourself to the world and giving all of yourself to the world. And so, younger me, what I want to do is share a few lessons that I've picked up since the last time we talked that I think you need, I think can be the difference in your journey. If you implement them, they will matter. They will differentiate you. So, take a breath, sit down, and listen to this letter addressed to you. First things first is believe in yourself. And I know, it's easier said than done. But younger me, it is everything. Because here's the deal. Sometimes life feels like this, like chaos. It doesn't quite make sense. You have a vision of something beautiful and meaningful and worthwhile, but you look to your left and you look to your right and you see nothing but chaos, and that's hard. There's no one that's going to tell you that you're on track. There's no one that's going to put their arm around you and tell you your dream is real and it's amazing and it's happening. There's no one that will be able to see it the way you can, and that's a lot of weight. But younger me, I need you to remember, nothing makes sense until it's real, and nothing becomes real until you build it. That means every step through the chaos and the destruction and the turbulence, it matters. It's building, it's accruing. You're bringing it to life, and someday those very same people who told you it didn't make sense will get it. and they'll come up to you and they'll thank you for your dedication and your effort. And they'll ask you, hey, show me, how can I build something like this? And you'll smile and say, well, it starts with standing in a broken house, in a construction zone. It starts with pouring yourself into something that looks so broken, it's laughable from the outside. Younger me, if you have that kind of conviction and that kind of self-belief, there's nothing you can't do. Younger me, second thing I want to tell you is that life is messy. If you take flight, that means there will be crash landings. There will be turbulence. There will be times where things feel shaky, but younger me, that's the name of the game. I used to think there were people out there and they had the answers and they had it right and they knew what they were doing. As time went by, younger me, I learned a few things. First, absolutely no one on earth has any idea what they're doing. And number two, there is no right way to do anything. And you might hear that and be overwhelmed. No, younger me, that's the magic. Life is not about following a formula or passing a test. It's about pushing yourself off into the world and making something of it. It's exploring. It's being a child walking around a living room and using the instruments in your proximity to bang things, to make noises, to express yourself, to create beauty. There is no right way. And you'll be tempted, younger me. You'll look around and you'll see someone who did something and think, well, I need to be like that. You'll see someone who succeeded at X, Y, and Z and think, well, I need to follow their blueprint. Younger me, that is the path to be a B version of somebody else. To be yourself, you have to treat the world like it is a canvas, and you are a painter about to paint the most beautiful thing imaginable. I'm asking, younger me, that you be one of the people with the courage to pick up the brush and paint, to try things, to go into a world that is unknown and uncertain and scary and push boundaries. Because you'll fall, but when you get back up and you shake off your hands and brush off your knees, you'll find magic that would otherwise have gone untapped. I know it can hurt, and I know it can be stressful, and I know it can be overwhelming. But that's not a bug, younger me, that's a feature. That's what it's all about. Ride that uncertainty to something meaningful. Next, we have enjoy the present moment. We're future-oriented, and that can be good. It's good to be ambitious. It's good to want things. It's good to push yourself into difficult situations to grow. But younger me, all we'll have ever is the present moment. In fact, I heard a quote recently where someone said, you could spend the next 20 years accumulating wealth, millions, dedicate your entire self to creating this world where you have everything you've ever wanted. But at the end of 20 years, you will absolutely, no doubt, give it all back to be where you are now. There's nothing more precious than time, younger me. And it's easy to never look around, to never look at the ground at your feet. There's beauty in the mundane things, the things we take for granted, the things we don't understand their value until they leave our lives. Their absence lets us know that, hey, that did mean something to me. And younger me, what I'm proposing is that you find gratitude and appreciation for those things before they're gone. That you really cherish them while they're here. Because younger me, if you're always looking ahead, there will always be a hole in your heart. If you're always looking ahead, fulfillment will be nothing more than a mirage. So younger me, smile and enjoy this ride. Younger me, this one's controversial. I've ebbed back and forth, to and fro here, but this matters, younger me. Follow your passion. And I'll tell you what, there's a contrarian argument that says, don't worry about your passion. Do what you're good at. Become skilled in something and learn to love it. And I get it. I understand it. Pragmatically, that makes sense. But younger me, if you want to create from the heart, it's a little bit different. And I'm a believer, younger me, that the things that change the world do come from the heart. There's a sense of curiosity and purpose and excitement. The reason that matters is because doing hard things rocks you to your core. It can break you. It tears you down. And you have to repeatedly build yourself back up. And younger me, if there's no love there, if there's no passion there, what's the incentive? Younger me, I think you can change the world. That's not semantics. It's not conjecture. I believe that you can, which means, younger me, you better care about the path that you're walking. It means when you move into the storm, you better believe in that sun on the other side. Otherwise, younger me, the off-ramps become too appealing. It becomes too easy to want to turn around, to take shelter, to go in and wait until the rain stops. Younger me, I think your mission is different. I think what you're about to do means more. So younger me, they might laugh and scoff at the idea that passion runs the world, but I think the things that matter are born from passion. Younger me, if you don't know this by now, I'm going to reiterate for you. Fear. Fear, that thing that stops us dead in our tracks. When our hands shake, younger me, it's easy to see that as a stop sign, as something wrong. But I want to remind you that that friction is what separates where you currently are from where you can be. Everything of value came through fear of being unknown and unsure. Every feeling of bliss was separated by a wall of uncertainty, of what ifs, of, hey, this could go wrong. This could be terrible for me. This could be the worst decision I've ever made. And theoretically, younger me, that's not wrong. But what if everything went right? Younger me, I need you to remember that. I need you to ask yourself that question. What if everything worked out? What if it went exactly how you wanted it to go? You can play defense your whole life. You can live scared. You can run away from the worst case. Or you can step into something and chase the best case. A lot of people don't follow through on what they can be. Not because the world chained them down, younger me, but because they chained themselves down. They took themselves out of a game with 1 second on the clock, down by 1. Not you. Younger me, when you're afraid, understand it, feel it, embrace it, but just know that it's not going to keep you where you are. It's something you're going to have to smile as you walk past and move on to better things. Younger me, this one's simple. But again, we come to this rule: the simple things are not the easy things. Here's the deal, younger me, you can always aim higher than where you're aiming. Always. There's an old rule in special operations that says when you think you're done, you're only at 40% capacity. Younger me, I heard that and I applied it to every aspect of life. We stop long before we are done. So younger me, aim high. There's a quote by Thoreau. He says, if you've built your castles in the air, good. Your work need not be lost. Now put the foundations under them. Younger me, the ones who aim high, the ones who dream big, at least give themselves a chance. You can always do more. You can always be more. And yeah, enjoy yourself. Love the process. Have fun on the ride. But inject meaning into it. A lot of people stop short. Again, younger me, don't be a lot of people. Point at the mountaintop. Number 7, younger me, Don't hold on too long. There are people in our lives that don't serve us, that don't make our world better. They don't add, they take away. And younger me, it's okay to respectfully put up boundaries and let those people go. It doesn't even mean that they're awful people. It doesn't mean that in some way they didn't add value, because every encounter and interaction technically does. But younger me, it's as simple as some people are not forever people. And the sooner you understand that, the freer you are. The weights leave your ankles. The same way, younger me, that just because you've always done something doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because something's been in your life or a part of who you are since you can remember, it doesn't need to stay there. Freeing yourself from the things that are not conducive to where you're going, younger me, means so much more than what you can pick up in a choir. Most of the time, our struggles come from not lack. They come from carrying around things that we don't need. And so, younger me, this is a call for you to have the courage to, when you look to your left and look to your right and see things that don't fit in the picture, that don't lift you up or push you forward, to smile, appreciate the existence of what surrounds you, but to let it go. Younger me, for the finale, I'm going to leave you with a big one. Might not be what you think. It's not rah rah. It's not go get 'em. It's not step up, son. Younger me, it's be patient with yourself. Understand that to demand perfection is a fool's errand. Because life is an experiment. And to experiment requires risk. It's trial and error. It's a game of making mistakes so that you can learn from mistakes. If you're scared to fail and break things, you'll never get that experience and that progress. You'll never get the instruments or the pieces required to build that which is meaningful. Younger me, every single one of these lessons that I'm explaining to you, every single one of these points I've had to learn in different contexts over and over again. And guess what? As soon as I put down this mic and I go about my life, I'll have to learn them again and again. Because the world changes around us. We adapt. We grow with it. Younger me, give yourself the grace to move with that current. To not be broken when things are hard or challenging, but to understand that you're doing the best you can. Understand that you're the type of person who tries things, therefore falls, but always gets back up. Love yourself enough, younger me, to give you that gift. If you're not patient with yourself, if you don't protect yourself, if you don't love yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. So younger me, I hope you remember that turbulence is not the end of the world. In fact, statistically, no plane has ever crashed due to turbulence. It is the nature of flight, and you can endure. You will endure. Our grandfather said when we were younger, you are always stronger than you think you are. Life may be great. It may be difficult. You may be in that valley in between. Wherever you are, understand that 1, you belong where you are, and 2, you're strong enough to endure. If you remember those things, younger me, the sky is the limit. And we meet again 7 years from now. You'll see, you'll understand, you'll get it. We'll be in a different place, different thoughts, different ideas to share, maybe the same ideas in different contexts, but we'll have done so knowing that we lived authentically with our heart, and we did everything we could to step into the world with courage. There's an old business fable about commitment. First time I heard it was years ago. I was watching a video of Dartmouth's rowing coach. He was telling a story to inspire his team. And basically in this story, there's a father, there's a son. They're sitting down at breakfast, and the son says, "Dad, I'm learning about commitment versus contribution in school, right? I'm trying to grasp it, but I can't quite understand the difference." Father thinks about it for a minute. He says, "Look down at your plate. What do you see?" Boy says, "Ham and eggs." Father says, "Well, that chicken made a contribution to your breakfast. That pig made a commitment." He then goes on to tell his team to row like pigs. And that simple metaphor created a foundation for everything that's come through my life since then, right? In anything we do, there's the option to go all in or to walk the line, to hedge your bets. And people so often leave or quit when something becomes difficult because there's another door they've left open, right? There's an easier way, an escape route. But let me ask you this. Do you think if it was a life or death situation, right? Say you needed water to survive, would you give up after looking for 3 hours and coming up empty-handed? Of course not. You'd keep looking because life depended on it, right? There's no other options available. There's this old saying that if you want to take the island, burn the ships, commit. And it's not until you do this that things truly begin to change, that progress is made at the highest level. You simply cannot tiptoe to success. You can't sneak up behind it. You have to own it, right? Go after what you want like the world is on fire, like your universe revolves around making this happen. I have never, in my 28 years of existence, seen a lion walk up to a gazelle and hope that it falls over, right? It attacks it with everything that it has. Speed, strength, tenacity. That's what brings home the prize. If you and your goals aren't one, if they are not the same, that's a pretty good indicator that you are fighting the wrong fight. You should live and breathe your dreams. Inhale and exhale them. They should live at the forefront of your mind, where every thought that comes through your head should be in the context of that dream. That basic question, how bad do you want it? Well, if you're not willing to fully commit to dive into something, then that gives you a pretty good answer right out of the gate. You can talk about hours spent, routines, habits, but if you aren't passionate about what you want, if you don't immerse yourself in it, none of that really matters. Live how you need to live. Do what you need to do. Be who you need to be to make your dreams real. Fully commit to excellence. Because until you do that, you will be left with only a vision and a false sense of reality. Winners don't have time for that. Okay, set your mind to your target and crush it. That is the only option. I want to share my story, but there's a problem. My pain is not as severe as the pain that a lot of people have endured. He said this to me on the phone, kind of working his way through the chaos of his mind and towards that calm and freedom of a blank piece of paper. And all I could think was, sure, maybe some folks have had it worse. After all, there's always going to be some who do and some who don't, but here's another truth. There will always be people right now who are where you were 6 months ago. Yeah, you didn't barely survive a car wreck. You didn't climb the tallest mountain in North America, no open heart surgery for you. But you did navigate heartbreak. And you did lose yourself and your purpose in your direction. And you did look in the mirror and ask yourself how in the hell you were going to put these pieces back together. And you didn't just sit there and let life fade away. In fact, you picked up the axe and you took a swing at that tree every single day. And now you're mentally tougher than you were, physically stronger than you used to be, surrounded by people who want you to win, further along than you've been in a long time. And I'm speculating, but maybe ever. These things don't happen by mistake. And you're gonna sit here and tell me you don't feel worthy of sharing that because you didn't climb Everest with one leg or something. You went from 0 to 1. So brother, this is no longer just about you. This is about the people currently sitting at 0. Do you get that? You are a gift. See, this is an example of something we all do. And Lord knows, I wouldn't be able to recognize it if I wasn't myself guilty of doing it. The brain wants to tell us why we aren't ready, aren't enough, aren't worthy, why everyone else is more deserving. They've climbed higher, ran further. But everyone, and I mean everyone, has their demons. And so maybe I've triumphed in my particular lane over the hurdle of being vulnerable online. But guess what? When I walk into a room of 10 people, 5 who know my work and not me, you don't think I feel worried? I'm not perfect. I'm beyond flawed, in fact. These videos that have helped so many, they're a product of pain being experienced in real time. There is a fear of not living up or even being found out, right? What if I'm not the man on the screen? After all, this is but a fraction of me. And so how do you solve for this? Well, you keep showing up. You keep earning that confidence for you and for the people who will someday be where you currently are, so that you can be the one who says, see, you're not alone. This is the cost of entry, my friends. I don't speak from a place of perfection. I speak from a place of someone who's adamant about figuring it out because I'm capable and I'm worthy and it's possible. I can change the world, not because I was miraculous or broke records, but because when it hurt the most, I kept going. And that's all. That's it. That's the message in real time. And that message at the right moment, at the right place, landing amidst the right ears, well, that's worth more than gold. And so you, in your current situation, I would go as far as to say, not only can you do that, not only can you be that, but you have an obligation to gift that to yourself and the world. When I say the words, you are enough, I mean it not in the sense of roll over and go to bed, son, you've arrived. Not stop moving towards meaning in your life, but I mean it in the sense that you are armed with enough to take this life anywhere you want to take it. Just keep showing up. Look over that shoulder of yours. Stare into the distance and focus on that version of you way back there. That's who you were. Do you remember that? That's where it started. And every so often, I need you to reflect back on the storms you've walked through. I want you to think about the times that you felt broken or hopeless. Reflect back on the moments that felt like the whole world had it figured out, everyone but you, and how small those moments made you feel. And now, close your eyes and think, not only did you survive it, but you evolved. You've grown. You moved beyond the loss and the heartbreak. You stretched further than the fear and the doubt and the anger. Through it all, you were relentless. You kept going. That's who you are. And so if you ever doubt whether the road you've traveled is enough, kindly remind yourself not to disrespect the work you've put in. The hills you've climbed, the losses you've overcome and transformed into wind at your back. When you were there, Remember how sweet the words, "I was once there too, so keep going." Because every step you take is not only etching into stone your new story, the next evolution of you, but it's lighting a path for those just a step behind. You are both the innovator and the messenger, the warrior and the poet, carving answers out of stone so that others may know the way. And friends, I'll leave you with this. Your greatness is not just about you, and it was never just about you. Your courage is a vehicle. So keep your eyes fixated on the horizon and keep moving forward until you can reach out and touch it with your hands, because God, will that feel good. For both the child inside you who wondered whether it was possible, and the people miles away who see a little flickering light in the distance that prompts them to be delusional enough to think, hey, maybe I can too. Monsters are not the exception, they are the rule. Yes, the very monsters in your world that bring you pain and frustration. The ones that appear out of nowhere and create chaos, as well as the ones you've seen coming for miles. They are inescapable. But I'll tell you what, that may just be the best news you've heard all day. Nietzsche once warned, when you stare into the abyss stares back. And here he's implying that when one focuses too much on negative, destructive forces, they can consume or corrupt. His warning implies that the more time you spend entangled in those struggles, the more they change you. I agree. But I want to, for the sake of practicality, add some nuance. I say, good. And so, I want to talk about engaging those monsters. And while doing so, not being consumed by the darkness, but rather learning from it, transforming through it, becoming who you were meant to become by confronting it. It is because of the fire that the iron is forged, through the unknown that reality is mapped out. It's only because of the things we fear that we learn to rise and become more powerful than those things. So yeah, the abyss, it stares back, and yeah, for the sake of this conversation, that is a beautiful thing. Monsters, they are not the exception, they are the rule. How do I know? Well, I can stand here before you and tell you, in my life, the things that brought the most pain also handed me the most meaningful change. The pain of feeling smaller forces one to become bigger. The pain of falling short forces one to start showing up better prepared. The pain of having insufficient or seemingly insufficient resources forces one to be resourceful. If I had everything on day one, then I'd be standing before you now with nothing. Nothing of substance, that is. None of the most meaningful things in my life as they currently exist. Monsters are not the exception, they are the rule. challenging us, pushing us to find our strength in our resilience in the face of adversity, helping us realize these challenges are not roadblocks but stepping stones, urging us forward. These monsters are choose your own ending stories. I guess the same way gasoline can be utilized to burn down a house or propel forward a Ferrari. The challenge is the answer, if you allow it to be. Monsters are not the exception, they are the rule. They become our teachers, revealing hidden truths and guiding us towards transformation. Each encounter with them is a lesson in disguise, teaching us courage and patience and wisdom. That shadowy figure you fear most also has more to show you, to teach you, to explain to you than anything or anyone else on the planet. Just begin the curriculum. Monsters are not the exception, they are the rule. And in accepting them, we embrace our fears, we unlock our truest potential. Through their acceptance, we find peace within ourselves. Look, it's intuitive to want less monsters because we fear them. What we fear hurts, and oh, how joyous it would be to live without hurt. But conversely, there is freedom in acceptance. See, life hurts. It just does. It's part of the human condition, and that fork in the road you will perpetually find yourself standing at asks you an ever important question. Do you want to choose the hurt that lifts you up and pushes you forward, or the hurt that leaves you right where you are, wishing you had more courage, wishing you were more daring, wishing that you stepped into life? Monsters are not the exception, they are the rule. Through them, we transform, becoming more than we ever imagined. They are the crucibles in which we are forged, emerging stronger, wiser, and more whole. There are no heroes without monsters. None. So how about giving yourself the gift of picking up the sword, the shield, and the crown at your feet? Monsters are not the exception, they are the rule. Yes, the very monsters in your world that bring you pain and frustration, the ones that appear out of nowhere, and the ones that you've seen coming for miles. But I'll tell you what, that just may be the best news one could deliver. Because today, those shadowy figures with their large, round, yellow eyes peering through the darkness become the reason that you stepped into your highest self. They and they alone are your invitation to recreate reality, to live life on your terms, to turn the darkness into the very path you were meant to walk. There will always be monsters. Thank God. There's a quote attributed to Lincoln. He says, "Be sure to put your feet in the right place, then stand firm." The other day I was listening to Dan Carlin's podcast called Hardcore History, which, side note, is an incredible podcast. Guy's a brilliant storyteller. And as I was listening, there's a specific idea that I wanted to dive into, an idea that I believe if we make an effort to understand and fully commit to, is capable of changing our lives. But first, some quick context, right? So Dan starts off this episode called King of Kings, talking about the Battle of Thermopylae in the year 480 BC in ancient Greece. It's that famous story that a lot of us know where King Leonidas leads that small army, which includes 300 Spartans against this massive Persian military force that's invading. And the quick version is essentially Xerxes, who's the king of the Persian Empire and in charge of that massive army, tells the much smaller Spartan force that if they lay down their weapons, if they submit to him and let the Persians pass, no harm will be inflicted upon them. They'll be free to go about their lives. And here's the famous line. In response to the Persian command to lay down their weapons, the Spartans respond, Malan labe, which means, come and take them. It's the Spartans' way of saying, look, the only way we're laying these weapons down is if you rip them from our cold, dead hands. Right? With everything on the line, the odds stacked against them, the ground beneath them basically shaking from the march of a far superior fighting force moving directly towards their location, they would not let go of their principles. They were fighting for something bigger than them. And I couldn't stop thinking about this idea long after I hit pause on the episode. I guess I was awestruck by the power of living life with that type of conviction. Because I know in my soul that's the North Star I should be gravitating towards. We all should. The strength to be unrelenting with regard to that which we care about. The aforementioned quote from Lincoln about finding the right place for our feet and then holding steady. With everything you have, all that you are, holding firm. I just couldn't get that out of my head. And then it came to me that invading force represents so much in our personal lives. So many things. One example being the difficult or adverse circumstances, our trying times. When you're most likely to concede that perhaps you're no bigger than that world around you. Maybe life is a movie and I'm merely the audience. My job is to clap, laugh, gasp, or cry. I'm a cog in a wheel, a line in a script, powerless. In which case, you should be reminded of Viktor Frankl's famous observation that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. In other words, the outside world may change. It may evolve, but it will never have power over how you choose to internalize and view what's happening. That's innately yours. So when the circumstances feel like they demand more than you can give, when they suggest you leave your interpretation of life behind, the correct response is, as the Spartans defiantly said, come and take it. That army could represent a pushback against your values, the pillars of your individual foundation that you feel, amidst all the pressure, tempted to let go of. After all, it's easier to retreat than stand toe-to-toe with others. It's easier to abandon than it is to defend, at least in the short term. But as Victor Hugo writes, you have enemies, good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life. The enemies obviously not being the point. I'm a believer in the conservation of enemy approach to life. Allies just pragmatically get you a lot further, but here's the reality. Anyone who stands for something will undoubtedly create divide. They'll be criticized and condemned. And when one feels the pressure of that criticism, they must understand that it does not invalidate who they are or their worldview. That is yours. You are the only one who can give up or relinquish that control. So as the Spartans said, come and take it. And then lastly, my thoughts went to the little things that make us who we are. Those tiny pieces of ourselves that we, little by little, one by one, over time give away. The concessions that fade into the background as we evolve to fit in so that we don't stand out. As Emerson beautifully put it, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. And so that attacking army just might be the universe attempting to mold you to it. Perhaps not all at once, but more like that frog placed in water and put on the stove, with the heat increasing so slowly over time that he doesn't realize the heat will soon overtake him. Externalities do not dictate. They are objects in need of meaning, and you are the architect here. If it means something to you, it's worth holding on to during the difficult times and the easy times. When it's popular and when it's not, there is value within you specific to you, a value that must be nurtured in order to expand. Others can't and won't see that. The world around you may, even with all its complexities, seek to suppress it. But that flame is there. It's there and it's yours. And to anyone or anything looking to extinguish its light, come and take it. After all, what is a life if not one lived on your own terms? The goal is not to simply exist, but to define the plane on which you'll evolve, to devise your own parameters. Be yourself as that world looks to make you something else. So here's to digging deep, to finding within yourself the courage to stand up to the great armies of chaos, conflict, adversity, and their perpetual conquest. To remember how strong you are, how much control you have as you navigate the unknowns and redefine the right nows. Don't let your strength be the thing you give away. Don't let your heart be what gets left behind. Don't let your thoughts become illusions of what could have been if only you'd held on. And look, I'm not saying it's easy. In fact, I know that the meaningful road will necessarily be the one that requires the most of us, that makes us question who we are and where we're going. It will ask that when our minds race with doubt and our knees shake with fear, we find a way to stand regardless, to walk to our demons, look them square in the eye and proclaim that whatever it takes, we are willing to give. That we will fight until there's nothing left, go until we can go no further, and hold with conviction all that matters most. So the next time life demands that you fall back or bow down, the next time chaos emerges in the distance and asks only that you lay down your arms, here's to being strong enough, certain enough, courageous enough to say one thing and one thing only: come and take them. You are always one decision away from a totally different life. It's one of my favorite ideas. It is what I lean on most when moving through some of the most difficult chapters of life. And I think it points to something very important. It points to our tendency to forget how much control we have over our own realities. And not just the small things, but the big things, right? The things that truly challenge us and push us, the things that often feel just beyond reach, larger than life. This idea reminds me that that's not the case. I'm going to give you a few quick examples for context, right? They're very basic. You've heard them before. The first is my health. What changed everything was the decision to start associating with people who knew more and were willing to help. Not rocket science. But at the time, I would have said, it absolutely is. Right? I started to piece by piece realize that everything was solvable. And even some of the things that weren't totally solvable, like an elbow issue, for example, it could be made better to the point where I could work around it. It didn't have to prohibit me from living my best life. It wasn't the giant problem I made it out to be in my mind. The list continues on. My work, every day hating what I was doing, until one day I thought, well, no. That's enough, right? The pain of the unknown is better than this silent, slow withering away. That's pain. And did I know what I was doing? No. Did it bring about a new type of discomfort altogether that I hadn't ever experienced? Yes. But it put me, for the first time in my life, on a trajectory to figure things out. Last example, the wrong romantic relationships, the wrong business partnerships, the wrong people in your circle. You only need to decide once, no more. You only need to decide once, hey, I'm out. I deserve better. Then you begin a process of healing and self-recreation. See, we don't act very often because we don't know what the solution is. And on its face, that's practical, right? That makes sense. But it's not a reason to keep yourself in a prison of discontent. I think for two reasons. One, the misalignment you're feeling, that feeling in your stomach that things are not right, is in and of itself a reason to go, to change, to adjust. And two, you don't start with the answers. You pick up answers along the way. You look in the mirror, you say, okay, I'm ready for more. You step out the front door, and then you collect results. It is not the other way around. And I think that's the problem. People conflate that thing they need with a complete solution. When in reality, the thing you need most very often isn't a complete solution, but it is a bridge from where you are now to a process of recreating yourself. In fact, one of my favorite anecdotes was by John Maxwell, the grocery store at night, right? You walk out of the grocery store, you have your bags, it's dark, it's pitch black, it's unsettling. But you make your way to the car, put your bags in the trunk, you get in, you turn the headlights on, and what do those lights give you? They give you just enough to pull out of the parking space. Can't see anything behind you or what's going on around you, but the lights give you enough to pull out of the space. And then they give you just enough to get to the edge of the parking lot. And then they give you just enough to turn onto the street. And then just enough to make a right turn at the stop sign and onto the main road. And on and on and on until you arrive at your house And so the question worth all the money in the world is, did you have all the answers at the beginning? Was the whole path lit up for you before you got in the car? Absolutely not. But what you had was enough to begin the process of getting from where you were to where you needed to be. And so you made the decision to get in the car and turn the lights on. Now, using that exact same metaphor, think about how crazy, counterproductive, just nonsensical it is to stay in that parking lot in the dark with your groceries. Because there's no light illuminating every step, because you can't, where you stand, see the entire path. Right? No, the decision to get in the car is the one decision that separates you from a totally different life. It's what begins the process of the snowball becoming an avalanche. It's the small thing that ultimately becomes monumental. See, life is peaks and its valleys, its seasons, its highs and its lows. But I'll tell you, many of you are standing in the dark right now, keys in your pocket, car an arm's length away, hesitant to get in and turn it on because, well, who knows what will happen when you pull out of the parking lot. But here's another way to ask the question. Who cares? Give yourself some credit. Trust yourself to figure things out, right? Losing is not starting a new adventure and getting lost. That's life. You'll make adjustments and figure it out. Losing is staying where you are in the dark because you're afraid, because you don't have all the answers, because you don't know everything, because you're not a god that can predict the future and understand and see what's lurking around every corner. Winners didn't start with more answers. They started with the courage to step into the dark in pursuit of those answers. They trusted themselves to, day by day, attack the puzzle and the mystery that is life. You have what you need, and you have it now. Let the fact that things are misaligned, that your soul is telling you things are not right, that more is out there, that you can be better, let that be your green light. And your decision to go, again, may not airdrop you at a finish line or a mountaintop, but it will be enough to start that process. It will be enough to empower you, to remind you that you are one decision away from starting the journey that will change your life. Every day, there is a specific decision you have to make. It's the first and it's the most important decision, because from it, you effectively roadmap your destiny. What I'm referring to is the choice to either have a positive outlook or to allow negativity and doubt to chart your course. It's a dilemma that truly is that simple. Every morning, you choose how you want to view the obstacles ahead of you. And what you get out of life will be very different depending on your decision. There's an old Cherokee legend that touches on this conflict. And in the story, there's an older man, he's talking to his grandson about life. He explains that inside all people, there's this fight going on. The struggle consists of two wolves. One manifests itself through negative energy,
He's anger, envy, sorrow, inferiority, all that is evil. The other is joy, compassion, faith, truth, all that is good. So he finishes explaining this. The boy sits there, he thinks about it for a minute. He asks his grandfather, well, which one wins? The grandfather replies, whichever one you feed. What we sometimes forget is that we are the sole makers of our own destiny. There are always going to be external factors, whatever they may be, negative people, tough circumstances, maybe a lack of resources. They'll be there, but they cannot dictate your happiness or your success unless you let them. Yeah, they may cause you to alter your approach. You might have to make adjustments. That's good. That's how we develop. That's how we improve. But no one and nothing writes your story but you. Your attitude, your emotions, they directly coincide with how you see the world. So anytime you feel discouraged, negative, envious, anything that's not positive, just stop. Don't waste your time with thoughts that aren't bringing you closer to your goal. There's just no value in it. Tony Robbins says this beautifully. He says you have to be the guardian of your own mind. Allow in only what will help you. Because God knows the world will crush you if you let it. So take the wheel. What you need to do tomorrow when you wake up is look at yourself hard in the mirror. Make a conscious decision to feed the good wolf. You'll be amazed at how far it will take you.
One year after a quadruple bypass, he was sitting right next to me, lacing up his shoes, getting ready to run an ultra marathon in the South Florida sun. Didn't tell a soul, by the way, that he had a stent put in less than 2 weeks ago. No, not Tom. It was funny, echoes of him a few years back saying, Eddie, you're not a doctor, so what do I get out of complaining about my pain to you, rang through my head. There was sun, humidity, recovering body and all. 68 years of life's trials and tribulations under his belt, all of it there with us at the starting line as we took off. When all was said and done, he completed 50 miles, which is a feat that, I'd venture to guess 99% of healthy men in their 20s couldn't just pick up and do tomorrow. It was impressive. But amidst the run, I forget how many miles in, this moment really stood out to me. We were standing on this walkway that kind of diverged from the overpass, leaning against a rail, and just watching the water push through the bridge underneath us and empty out into the Atlantic. He needed a breather because his reconfigured heart was throwing a quick temper tantrum. I made a joke about how it wasn't quite lunacy, but he was flirting with it. And he goes, "You want to hear a good story?" Me, of course, yes, I'm a story guy. And he says, okay. And he was off. He starts this story about a married man. And this man is living in a hut with his wife in a little village. And the man's in-laws lived in a hut one village over. Right? And one day he woke up to the news that his in-laws' hut had totally burned down. So, what would happen next? You guessed it. The in-laws packed up what remained of their belongings and headed over to live with the man and his wife. So now he had the in-laws living with him in his hut. How bad could it be? Well, a few weeks go by and he realized it can be that bad. He just couldn't stand, the living situation. Constant nagging, judging, lack of personal space, all the things, right? He says, I need help. So he goes to a village elder. We'll call her the sage. He goes to the sage. He says, look, you're incredibly wise. I need some help. My in-laws moved in and it's hell. My life is terrible. I can't stand this. Please help me. And the sage thinks for a second, says, okay. Let me ask you something. Do you have any chickens? He says, chickens? Yeah, I have chickens. Why? The sage says, well, go get them and bring them into your hut. Let the chickens live with you as well. The man, somewhat confused, he thanks the sage. He goes, okay, goes home, brings all his chickens into his hut. Then another week goes by. As you'd expect, things are just absolutely chaos. Chickens running around, feathers everywhere, things are dirty. A nightmare. So he goes back to the sage and he says, look, I don't know what the idea was here or what the intent was, but somehow my life is worse. Can you please help me make it better? And the sage says, I think I can. Do you have any pigs? He says, yeah, I have pigs. The sage says, perfect. Invite the pigs into the hut to live with you. Again, he looks at her confused. Invite the pigs to live with me into the hut too? Yes, she says. So he leaves, brings all the pigs in. After about a week, he looks around and just a dystopian situation. Disaster. And he's furious. He goes back to the sage. He says, look, you have made my life somehow way worse. Do you know how disgusting pigs are? This place is just out of a horror movie. The sage says, I see. He says, you see, are you going to help me or not? Right? Please give me some guidance to make my life better. So the sage sits there, silence for a few seconds. Finally, she says, okay, listen to me carefully. If you want to make your life better, here's what you do. Go home and remove the chickens and pigs from your hut. You're welcome. It's a message about perspective, right? It's gratitude for the things that in the moment we might not see or appreciate. I'll never forget the quote, a healthy person wants a million things. A sick person wants only one. It emphasizes how much we take for granted. We don't appreciate the day-to-day or our normalcy, our reality until it's pulled from us. We have to be reminded, hey, there's a lot to be thankful for here. And I inject this because this is personal experience. It's anecdotal, but it was really a big deal for me. Like, I used to think of gratitude as woo-woo, right? The way it's used, it's like, okay, go around saying you're grateful, that's nice. I didn't understand the tool that it was, and that it shines a mirror on all those things that we don't see. Right? The things we get to do, the people in our lives, the communities we live in, our ability to go out and, work out if we want to. Entertain ourselves if we want to, right? Like, you fill in the blank. All of these things we just take for granted. But they matter. And what Tom was saying that day on that bridge overlooking the water was that putting himself through that manufactured hell made everything else feel like bliss in comparison. Mile 30 and 40 and 50, especially after heart surgeries, right, was the metaphorical chicken and pig. It was inviting chaos and discomfort into his life so that when he reached the finish line, he could remove all that pain and look at his world with a new lens, a new appreciation for baseline. When I look at the wrong things, when I focus on the wrong stuff, which I do from time to time, I fall out of alignment completely, right? I feel frustrated and I feel small. I get overwhelmed. And when the dust settles, it's obvious to me that it's because I'm no longer seeing the power in what's around me. When you take away the extra, right, and you focus on the things that matter, that are meaningful to you, there exists enough to move mountains. The tools exist to change your life. It's just that sometimes they get buried under the wrong things you don't need. And that could be an infinite list as well. We put ourselves into chaos intentionally so that when we remove the chaos, we are reminded how strong we are. We get how small and manageable the obstacles that we often allow to consume us. Create that perspective for yourself. Push your limits. See how far you can go. Let life know that nothing is too much for you to manage. Nothing is bigger than you. Remind yourself how much of a blessing it is to wake up in the morning and take in the day. Feel the sun on your face. The challenges are a gift. The obstacles are beautiful. The uncertainty is magic. So make sure you can see that. Help yourself understand it, visualize it, appreciate it. For no other reason than the practicality of the exercise. You don't want to let life slip by and realize you didn't treat time like the precious commodity that it is. Staring off into the distance and saw something that, at least from what I understand, is pretty rare in the Scottsdale area. The sky was so hazy that you could barely see the mountains. A blanket around the infinity that I was so used to staring out at. And what do I know for sure as I gaze into the distance? Well, first and foremost, this immersion into chaos is temporary. Because behind that curtain of fog, there exists clarity. There lives the pristine, there is calm. Just tucked away for the moment. And this haze, it's not confined to the mountains of Scottsdale. In fact, this is the very same haze life has a tendency to drop us directly into the epicenter of the unknown. And here's the thing, when life presents us with this haze, we can be angry, but it won't care. We can scream and complain and project out, but it'll pay no mind. Our emotions and the motives of the haze that surround us are mutually exclusive. The only way to win here is to know that clarity exists behind the curtain and like a guided missile walk through the mist until the little shapes start materializing into the recognizable, into everyday life. See, some games are not chess. They're not complex, they are simple. They're about carrying on or not carrying on. Resilience, and that is all. Will you commit to hanging in long enough to capture the skyline that has gifted you peace so many days prior to today? It's not a weather question, or a haze question, or a visibility question. It is a you question. And you get to choose how you'll answer it. Easy, you might think. No, sometimes putting one foot in front of the other is the hardest thing. Shaking hands with the unknown is a taxing thing. It's a courageous thing. But sometimes it is also the only thing. You have to know that right now, no, there is no validation, but I will find some. And sure, there's no road mapped out before me, but I'll blaze my own. And sure, I don't have answers, but the past has proven to me that I can collect them along the way. And what you'll find is that haze, that very cause for discomfort, ends up being an ally. Because through it, we affirm to ourselves that clarity is there and we are beyond capable of capturing it. That when things are their worst, we have the ability to rise to the occasion. That when we don't know, we become manufacturers of solutions. Getting what you want is not a story of navigating paved roads. It's about stepping into the brush and finding a way. Step by step, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. And so while the temptation may be to look around right now and say, I don't know how this story ends. I don't know how to handle this turbulence, therefore problem. I invite you to use the unknown, the haze, the chaos, the turbulence as a portal to reality as you see fit. And I invite you through this quote unquote fog of war to begin again. To rediscover a life well lived. Because not only is it possible, it's who you are. What if the heaviest weight was not on your back? It's not what you carry, it's what's in your mind. So imagine with me the idea of manufacturing discomfort in your life, creating chaos in your world intentionally, on purpose, so that when the chaos is over, you have a greater appreciation for the baseline, for normalcy. Well, that's what this metaphor is about, right? I'm gonna talk about a very simple ruck up Camelback Mountain in Phoenix. Ruck being, for those who don't know, basically putting on a backpack with weight in it. So I'm carrying, in the video component to this, 35 pounds, 30 pound like weighted slate with some water and just stuff like that. And the idea is it makes the climb harder. But there's a reason for that, a very important reason for that. And I'm gonna break it down for you in 4 pieces. I think this is a really cool metaphor, translates one-to-one to facing adversity in life, facing our most difficult moments. The 4 pieces here is going to be the beginning, showing up at the mountain, pulling the car in the parking lot, putting the backpack on, and looking up from the base to the summit, soaking in everything that's ahead. The next one is the ascent, the climb, the actual duress. Then we have the summit. When you're up top, you can look down, you can see how far you've come, reflect back on how you've changed, and then the descent, where you go down the mountain, which sure has its own set of problems, but you're a different person, and you're taking all that wisdom and beauty with you back down to everyday life. So without further ado, let's get into it. The beginning. You show up, park the car, get out, put the weighted backpack on, and it always feels heaviest at first. you have those thoughts, the self-doubt, the one, why am I doing this? It feels kind of unnecessary. And two, can I do this? Camelback, it's not one of the hardest hikes in the world, but it's straight up. It's a lot of scrambling. It's tough on the knees and lower back, and you have to be in relative shape to do it well. And so this extra weight has you thinking, is it even possible, right? And I think that's a normal thing to contemplate. But here's what I took solace in. The idea that this is not a burden that I carry by accident. I wasn't dropped there at the base of that mountain. Me showing up was a promise to myself. It's a promise that I'm not going to run from hard things, that I'm going to climb the mountain on purpose because the man that I want to become is created during the climb and lives at the top. This is the building of self. That's how you build character. That's how you evolve, placing yourself in those moments. There's a metaphor about a butterfly in a cocoon. And the idea is this butterfly has been in the cocoon for X number of weeks or months, and the butterfly is ready to emerge. And it starts pushing through the cocoon, right? Now fully developed, it's got wings, it's the whole thing, trying to get out and enter the world, but it's struggling. It's struggling initially to get out of the cocoon, and a passerby looks at it, sees it, and thinks, oh man, right, that poor butterfly, why don't I just give it a hand? And so he walks up and he kind of tears open the cocoon to allow the butterfly to emerge. Thinks he does his good deed for the day, helps the butterfly leave, and moves on, goes about his day. The issue is the butterfly needed that fight in that struggle, getting out of the cocoon to establish its strength, to grow. Now, what's happened, because it was given this free pass, is the butterfly is now immersed in a world in which he is not capable of navigating. He has not fought for anything. He hasn't built the strength or the endurance, and ultimately the butterfly dies. And that's essentially what this ruck is, right? It's an intentional emergence from the cocoon of normalcy, we'll say, where manufacturing that difficulty is a method to build strength. It's the only way to grow. It's the only way to reach your potential, to be prepared for the ebbs and flows of life, the curveballs, the chaos. Are you putting yourself in position to conquer that? Just like that butterfly, struggle is essential for growth. Next phase, the ascent, the climb up. Arthur C. Clarke said, the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. That's what this is about. Focusing on the moment, on the challenge at your feet, moving beyond the pain of the now, because you're gonna feel tired. Your knees are going to, be uncomfortable. Your lower back is going to hurt. This is scrambling straight up, a pretty tough hike. So what do you do about it? That is the ultimate question. There's a really, what I think is relatable story about a man who's handed a 1,000-piece puzzle with no picture on the box. And at first, the pieces are overwhelming, right? He has no idea what he's building. But he starts with the edges. One small corner at a time, and slowly the patterns emerge. He realizes he doesn't need to, fill the whole picture to begin. He just needs to start. And it perfectly fits the ascent, because when you're looking up at the finish line or the summit, it feels too much. It feels greater than you're capable of doing, and it is. You cannot leap from the base of the mountain to the top. But what you can do is focus step by step and think about nothing more. That is the beauty and the secret to accomplishing incredible things. You focus on the ground at your feet in that moment. And then what happens is, as time passes, you look back, you see your growth. And you'll see that on this journey, right? This little adventure on a Tuesday afternoon, the checkpoints, where every so often I stop and I turn around and the view just gets better and better. And I think, I've done that. Through the chaos, despite the discomfort, with this burden on my back, I've done that. By not thinking more, but by thinking less. One step at a time. Next phase, the summit. All those steps, one, turn into 100, turn into 1,000, turn into multiple thousands of steps. And now you are standing at the coveted summit. Helen Keller has a beautiful quote. She says, although the world is full of suffering, it's also full of the overcoming of it. Life is yin and yang. And it's interesting to understand that beauty means nothing without its inverse. Joy means nothing without its inverse. We need night to get day. You need pain and suffering in moments of weakness to understand strength. And when you're standing at the top of your mountain, whether literal or metaphorical, that makes more sense than ever before. Because you forged a new reality through the depths of hell. You found meaning in what seemed like little inconsequential steps forward. There's an idea that in a pitch black room, one person, by just lighting a small lamp, can entirely change the perspective. Nothing in the room changes or shifts, but suddenly, because of this lamp, everyone sees more clearly. There's been a perspective shift. And in my mind, that's what the summit is. It's that lamp. It's that giving clarity and insight to something that was already there, just hidden in the dark. And you look back down to a normalcy that's going to be forever changed now. And this is, again, there are times where I'm speaking on this one particular climb and it may seem trivial, and in many ways, some of it is. But this is more than just a mountain, right? This is everyday life. You know more now. You know you're capable of things now that you maybe weren't sure of at the base of that mountain. Now there's 100% proof in my mind I can put on 30, 35 pounds and fly up that mountain. And probably faster the next time, and the next time, and the next time. I know that I'm someone who can step into chaos and overcome it. People follow through on who they believe themselves to be, and my self-belief just expanded throughout that little experiment. It is a rewriting of self, a rescripting of the world and your place in it. These things matter. They matter because how you look at yourself is everything. The world will not believe it until you do. And what you did by ascending that mountain and intentionally making the climb more difficult is change that self-narrative. Last phase, the descent. So as I make my way down the mountain, the weight feels lighter. Not because it's any less, but because I am more. And I thought a cool tie in here, this actually goes back to my college days of, jumping into Odysseus. He's the hero of Homer's Odyssey, which is essentially a Greek epic, begins after the Trojan War. And Odysseus is just trying to get home, right? He's not seeking fame or treasure or conquest, just trying to get home. But what should be straightforward turns into like this 10-year chaotic, epic with, trials. He's tested all the time, mind, body, spirit, patience, identity, you name it. He faces monsters, tempests sent by God, seductive distractions from sirens and goddesses, heartbreaking loss, all of it. But each trial forces Odysseus to shed old versions of himself. Right? He has to become more cunning instead of just relying on brute strength. He relies on humility instead of pride, endurance instead of raw force. The trip, the journey, the chaos, the pain, the discomfort pushes and incentivizes recreation. And I think that the tie-in is incredible because when he gets home, and he does, his body's changed, but his mind is sharpened. His heart is different. And home is now different to Odysseus. But not because home changed, because he did. And so this little exercise of now stepping back to the base of the mountain after the descent, taking the backpack off, how light you feel. Right? And most of us don't walk around with backpacks on all the time, heavy backpacks, myself included. But I'll tell you what, I appreciated it. For the first time, maybe ever, it was, I was incredibly grateful to be moving around just as I am, with no extra weight. There was a gratitude, there was an appreciation, there was a sense of pride, and all self-created. The magic here is not, I'm so special, look at me. The magic is that there's nothing particularly special about doing something like this. We all can. It's low-hanging fruit. It's there for every single one of us to grab in our own lives. And again, rucking is just one metaphor. If you don't want to ruck, beautiful. Replace rucking with X, Y, or Z. But you have so much to teach yourself that's just untapped. You just have to, when you look at the base, look up and understand the adventure, understand the components, understand that one, at the beginning, it'll feel intimidating, but know that you're worthy. Number two, on the ascent, as you're climbing up, understand that it's going to be intimidating, it's going to hurt. And when you look at the thing in totality, it feels like too much, but you don't have to accomplish it in totality. You accomplish it one step at a time. You can do that. Understand that at the summit, you're going to feel and understand things that you could never have if you didn't put yourself in that situation. The person you want to be, you can be, is at the top. And understand, during the descent, coming back, you're bringing a world of understanding back down to reality that didn't exist before. You're taking all that back down to regular life, and it will be different, not because regular life changed, but because you changed. So I encourage you to find your rucksack, find your mountain, make the climb, and allow yourself to redefine in your world what's possible. Silence is loud. Places I never went, the action I never took, things I didn't say, they still ring in my ears. They echo across time, but not in the way you might think. See, they arrive and fall before me at my feet, not as regret, but as a reminder that life isn't over. They appear, rather, as an invitation to transcend past limitation and step into that ever-elusive idea we often refer to as what can be. Do you remember that feeling being a kid, let's say second grade? Put yourself in a desk, looking up to the front of the classroom. Teacher asks a question, and you know the answer. Well, at least you're pretty sure you know. But there's a seed of doubt. What if it misses the mark? What if it's not quite there? You mull it over, And ultimately, keep your hands in your pockets and your head down, only for someone else to raise their hand. The teacher chooses them, they answer the question. They give the same answer you were going to give. Not only correct, but wow, excellent, nailed it. That was a tough one, too. Round of applause. Good job, Student X. Student X, with possessing both the right answer and the courage to be wrong, if that's the result fate were to cast upon him. And the thought, it replays in your mind. It's like, I was going to say that. I knew that. And then suddenly there's a shift. Student X's response gets quieter and quieter. It fades into the background. What was said is no longer relevant. All you can hear now are the jarring, droning echoes dispersed from the abyss your nothingness created. Your silence screams so loud that it penetrates every ounce of your being. The question, it was trivial. The response didn't matter. It was never about that, was it? It was rather a microcosm of the crossroads we face in life over and over again, way beyond second grade. The question, do we act and risk the fall in exchange for the mountaintop, or do we pause, hesitate, and invite into our worlds a silence so excruciating it cannot be outrun? A silence that covers every corner of your reality, a silence that moves where you move and goes where you go. It lives until you find the courage to speak. Every once in a while, it's beyond valuable to be reminded that life is finite. It doesn't seem like it right now. It doesn't seem like it from your desk or out the car window as you drive your kids to school. It doesn't seem like it in traffic. It doesn't seem like it in the weight room by yourself or putting your thoughts to paper at the kitchen table before the rest of the world wakes up. But none of this, my friends, is here to stay. It all goes, every single thing. And so here's the switch I'm advocating be made. In soccer and in hockey, when a team's losing by one very late in the second half or third period, they often pull the goalie, leaving their own net wide open. How vulnerable. But in doing so, they simultaneously increase their odds to score because the goalie now acts as another attacker. Again, it is a gamble for sure. But down by one, when time is running out, who cares? It gives you a chance. And I don't see how life is any different. We're all here for a length of time that equates to a blink of an eye. We are a raindrop in a thunderstorm. The siren is about to sound. The whistle is about to blow. In a million years, why would you not pull the goalie? Why would you sit there in a self-created silence wondering what life could have looked like if only you gave more? This is the one and only opportunity to pour all of yourself into something before something becomes nothing and the march of time leaves you in the rear view. Yeah, maybe you win and maybe you don't. But the ticking clocks, they're playing a different game altogether, and to win yours, you must understand theirs. is louder than a swing and a miss. It's louder than a courageous soul who misjudges an approach and smashes into the ground. It's louder than the lessons life graciously hands out to those willing to step into the belly of the beast. Silence is loud. So go scream your truth unto the world. Go make your mark. No, not for vanity, but because of the same question previously alluded to. Why not? As far as I'm concerned, odds don't dictate reality as much as they shape perspective. You shouldn't be here. The statistical likelihood is just too small. Your existence has attached to it almost impossible odds, yet here you are. And you have the audacity, given this info, to sit there in silence. You're delusional, selfish, wasteful enough to not go, to not try, to not unpack the gift at your feet and make your way into the world. My friend, your silence screams. So go. Leave in your wake a trail of courage that screams louder. Leave behind you a message to the world that you weren't given much time. No, not much time at all. But you were given enough time. Your snapshot in the movie of eternity, your verse in the great play of life, your chapter in the book of existence, it will read like the miracle that it is. Oh, miracle. That's a big word. That's a lot of pressure. But no, it's not about the magnitude of your decision making. It's about walking through those little doors in life that terrify you. It's about saying yes to those opportunities that put knots in your stomach and cause your hands to shake. It's about sharing your voice, delivering your thoughts, even when you don't know how they'll be received. It's walking the path you know in your soul you need to be walking. The silence is deafening. So speak into that void, make something you can call your own, chip away at the marble until what's precious remains. So be louder than the dissenting voices. Be louder than the ticking clocks. Be louder than the setting sun. Be so loud that even if, for a brief, single moment in time, the world knew you were here. Too often, we overcomplicate the simple. It's like, what is the exact map? Is every detail correct? How do we solve for X but mitigate Y? Right? All of those things are nice, but none of them are critical. What's critical is focusing on the next step forward. Come along with me for a little journey. I just finished running 100 miles from Key Largo to Key West with some friends, and while there's plenty to unpack here, and I'll certainly be doing so in upcoming episodes, I want to talk specifically about a man and fellow runner named Austin. Because while everyone along for the journey was beyond impressive, after all, we didn't need to be there. While every one of us found within ourselves the courage to push harder and dig deeper than we previously had, while every single one of us did something challenging that most people wouldn't do, the reality is only one other person besides myself completed all 100 miles. And in a results-driven world, that matters. It just does. And so I want to talk about that person, Austin, who certainly has overcome a lot, right? He was telling me about his journey through some of the adversity that has made him who he is today. Powerful is an understatement here. While he's clearly an athlete, has some boxing matches under his belt, could probably curl my body weight at the gym, he was no distance or ultra runner. At least not until last week in the Keys. And so, the first 20 miles goes by, and I consider the first 20 miles, it's like fun. It's exciting. You have the whole race ahead of you. Nothing's hurting yet. Your lower body isn't kicking or screaming. There's no blisters or cramps or rash or fatigue. It is smooth sailing. But then you know how the game goes. 20 becomes 30, becomes 40, becomes 50. And then life steps in. And sometimes, it's a blown out knee, or it's, your heart acting up. Those are things that you can't do anything about. You've been dealt a rough hand. You tip your cap to fate. You say, this time you got me, but I'll be back. And that certainly happens. But in my mind, that's the exception. Most of the battles in an endeavor like this are of the mind. It's warfare of mindset. It's will. It's resilience. And watching, this probably 200-pound dude continually push towards that finish line, running when he could, walking when he had to, it was a courage that's hard to articulate. Particularly evident, and this stands out to me, or stood out to me, on the water breaks, where we all would sit, sometimes in quiet, sometimes talking about the road ahead, having some snacks, the breeze hitting our faces. But these pauses, these moments of rest, I've come to find here, as well as other physical challenges I've done, these moments in time are what capture most souls, because it's like people don't quit while they're moving. For some reason, they quit while they're sitting down, while they're taking a breather, enjoying the calm, a bag of chips, while they're reminded what absence of pain feels like. And that alarm sounds, hey, let's go, boys, it's time. That's when the, nah, I'm good. The, nah, no thank you, or I'm done. That's when those emerge. But I'll tell you, every time that alarm went off, he'd shut his brain off and he'd stand up. His feet looked so destroyed that I won't even share images of them. But it didn't matter. He'd limp over to the road where we would continue on. The same way, if you think about a feather, right, really has no say if one were to drop it off a bridge. It's like the second the hand releases it, it's at the mercy of gravity. It's gonna float down to the world below, doing what it has to do. And, I'll be real, it wasn't always pretty. It was ugly at times. There were times where it was, faster than I thought it would be. There were times where it was excruciatingly slow. There were times where it was through the heat of a South Florida, sunny day. And there were times where it was, chillingly cold in the middle of the night. But either way, all 100 miles, every single step of them were covered. And see, me, I've been doing this for years. I love it. Well, hate it during the middle, of course, but that's the game. I'm built for this through years of repetition. It wouldn't be fair for, us to compare our pursuits. I imagine it'd be relatively similar to me walking into a boxing ring with him, right? That would be a bad day for me. Well, in a way, distance running like that is my boxing ring, which is why, I felt like him stepping into it. He wasn't just doing it for himself. It felt like he was carrying a burden for all of us, a gift for us to hold on to tightly as we said goodbye to our friends and hopped back onto a plane to normalcy. Some questions gift wrapped for me to take back to the desert. One, are you putting yourself through something completely foreign, new challenges? Not, oh, this is kind of annoying type adversity, but I'm in so far over my head here that I'm drowning type adversity, because that's where change happens. And two, are you, even when walking through the flames of hell, trusting your ability to put one foot in front of the other? To step back out onto the sidewalk regardless of externalities, because the vast majority of our battles happen not out in the world, but in our minds. The stories we tell ourselves are everything. And that's not a nice little cliche for an Instagram quote. That's the difference between reaching mile 100 and looking up, wishing you had. It's the difference between evolving into your potential and staying where you are. In many ways, it's the difference between the person you currently are and the person you can become. And so, most likely, you're not on mile 80 of a 100-mile run, but you do have your equivalent. And maybe your feet aren't torn up and your legs aren't sore, but you do have your source of discomfort and duress. And what I need you to remember is that getting there requires, when that alarm goes off, you stand up, you step out onto the battlefield, and you continuously push forward. Through the heat, through the cold, beyond the pain and doubt and uncertainty and questions about what it'll all mean. What if this goes wrong or this happens? Right through the center of all of it. Because the journey may seem long, but the journey is never your responsibility. One more step is your responsibility. Trusting that little things will culminate into big things is your responsibility. Understanding that when the world bows down, you can be the one who stands up, says no, and carries on. That is your responsibility. The funny thing about running 100 miles is it seems so over the top and outlandish that we forget it's just one step many times. Show me someone who can't take one more step. Show me the man or woman who can't figure out how to move 12 inches further into the abyss. For creatures blessed with an ability to think that supersedes all other living things on Earth, it's amazing to me that some of our greatest achievements, our strengths, our superpower requires that we cut the thinking off and simply stand up and rise to the occasion. Over and over again. Not when we want to or when it feels right, but when we are called to. If you think like that, if you can rewire your mind to make that your reality, that first 100 miles is only the beginning. Let's talk about escaping life's algorithm. Because, yeah, YouTube has an algorithm, and Spotify has an algorithm, and Instagram and TikTok and all the social platforms we use have algorithms, but guess what? Life has an algorithm as well, and it tends to be a lot more powerful. It's the invisible force that rewards what's safe, predictable, unexpected. It nudges you towards the path most traveled, steering you not towards what's best for you, but towards what is most reinforced by the system in place. After all, that's what an algorithm is. And so on social media, we'll start there. You tend to see this clearly. Originally content is made, let's say out of curiosity or genuine interest, or maybe just a quick idea, spark of inspiration, whatever it is, right? And so the creator makes it, uploads it, brings it into the world. But then that piece of content garners some success. It gets a lot of views. The algorithm pushes it. The question then becomes, oh, wow, what did I do right? How do I replicate that? How do I do more of that? Which there's nothing wrong with asking those questions, right? That's the pragmatic thing to ask if you're trying to reach folks. But it also becomes the trap. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I always laugh at this story. On TikTok, I saw this video where some dude goes up to a door and hits the door with a hammer. And I don't know what this says about humanity, but the video goes viral, gets millions of views because he hit the door with the hammer. And so you go back to the account 2 months later, and it's just hundreds of posts of this dude cracking doors with hammers. No substance, right? Does there need to be? That's a different conversation. And I look at that and I laugh and I think, well, not me, right? My stuff is quote unquote more substantive. Well, maybe. But maybe not, because you could make the argument that in our own world, we're all hitting metaphorical doors with metaphorical hammers. We're all playing a game in a system without realizing it. We're all succumbing to an algorithm, one way or another. And this is actually something that my team and I are usually trying to balance, right? That tightrope of doing what will reach others, because if you're not playing to win, why are you playing? But simultaneously never failing to do what inspires us. Of course we want to grow and help as many people as possible. But your soul has to be lit doing it. Otherwise, why are you here? If I'm not posting what I find meaningful, there's a dissonance in my head that makes it impossible for me to function. I have to feel aligned. I'm stubborn about that. And sometimes I wish less so, but that's just how I'm wired. I talk a lot about inspiration in our lives not being a luxury. Well, that's because it sparks everything meaningful. And when there's no inspiration, when you're only playing within that box that a platform set up for you, are you a creator? Or are you just another useful widget on a conveyor belt? Suddenly, you're no longer chasing inspiration, you're chasing an algorithm. It becomes about playing the game, not telling the truth. It's about feeding the machine, not exploring your soul. And so we're almost 4 minutes in here. You're probably wondering what this or how this connects to the bigger picture. Well, here's where it gets interesting. It's not just a social media problem. It is the problem. The world rewards conformity. It praises stability. It claps when you take the well-lit path, the one that's been walked 1,000 times before, because it craves that predictability. It wants to have your story, mission, bio down to a T so it knows where it can group you in. I mean, think about it. You're nudged toward a degree that is practical, a job that's secure, a way of being that minimizes risk. And little by little, you trade your unique vision for, the comforting metrics of social validation. You stop asking, is this the game I want to play? And you start asking, how do I win the game I'm already in? But winning the wrong game is just a glorified version of losing. A person can go their entire life climbing a corporate ladder only to realize it's leaning up against the wrong building. They can spend decades, chasing approval only to wake up one day and realize they never truly were themselves. And this is not me just sitting back critiquing the world or virtue signaling. I mean, I lived this, right? Which is why, one, it's so apparent to me as I'm going through it, and two, why it means so much. It's like in my mid-20s, I looked around and I'm like, I did everything right. I did everything I was supposed to do. I got good grades to go to a good school, to get a good job, to do all the things. Like, why am I miserable? Why do I feel like I am losing? And the answer is because I'm playing the wrong game. I was in the wrong arena, right? Me in an office sorting columns in Microsoft Excel is as backwards as Michael Phelps playing nose tackle. I sucked at it. It's just not where I was supposed to be. And this is the danger of life's algorithm. It rewards you for compliance, not fulfillment. It encourages repetition, not growth. And if you don't take control, if you don't step back and see it for what it is, you'll mistake the road ahead for the only road. So what's the solution? Well, it's the same lesson I had to learn with content. The same lesson every creator learns if they last long enough on that wheel. You have to disconnect from the algorithm and reconnect with you. Small things first, from a content perspective. I started implementing videos very recently on weekends that I know, at least algorithmically, are gonna lose in the short term. But it feels different. And it's nice to mix things up and not care about metrics or watch time. It reinforces that without some push into an unknown and challenging of a status quo, I'd stay the same. These speeches that mean so much to me, clearly, they reflect my life outlook. And if I'm just going through the motions, I'll never be at my best. The snow globe has to consistently be shaken up. And there's some selfishness here, right? Necessarily. It's not, how do I get more views? It's what do I want to say? It's not how do I get promoted? It's what type of impact do I want to have? It's not what will people think of me or how will they view me, but what makes me come alive? These are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves in the digital realm and far beyond it. That is the shift. That's how you escape the algorithm, not by beating it, but by stepping outside of it. I've come to realize that, this above all warrants my attention. And hopefully, if you reflect and find yourself in a similar pattern, you'll join me. Whether it's work, relationships, routine, art, whatever it may be. You realize that the most meaningful things in life, the creativity and love and joy and purpose, they'll never fit neatly into a formula. It would be great. It'd be a real treat if they did. It would simplify a lot. But that's not how the world works. And so if you feel trapped, if you feel like you're playing a game that doesn't feed your soul, take a step back. Breathe. Look at the board in front of you and ask, is this truly mine? Because you don't owe the algorithm anything. But you do owe yourself everything. What if everything you've worked for has become the very thing holding you back? Life is a continuous game of reinvention. It's a process of building, breaking down what you've built, and building back again better. So, story time. I've been at this for 10 years, gang, a decade. And over that stretch, it's been a roller coaster. I've experienced some of the craziest, hardest, sometimes loneliest, most challenging times of my life. But simultaneously, some of the most beautiful, exciting, fun, and fulfilling times in my life. The thing is, right now, in this moment, life is asking of me what ultimately it comes to ask every single one of us, to break down and build again. It's asking and calling for reinvention, a new chapter. You might be wondering why. Well, for a few reasons. Other than it just being intuitive and that gut feeling that when you know something you know, there are some pragmatic components too. First and foremost, a shifting media landscape. A lot's changed with media in the past few years, and in this arena, if you don't adapt, you die. And that's accompanied with data pointing at that same thing. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, it's that dimming of the light in my soul. Because when you proceduralize anything, to standardize and systematize, it's very easy to lose the very thing that made it beautiful to begin with. These things indicate to me it's time to reinvent. And you might hear that and think, okay, great. So make a change. You're not wrong. But I'll tell you what, when you're starting out, it's a lot easier to adjust course, to pivot, to change things. It feels as though there's less at stake, because what I've come to realize is that once you've built something, letting go and jeopardizing that stability that you've finally assembled after years and years of turbulence, that feels like doing heart surgery on yourself. But truth be told, this situation or this operation needs a heart transplant. I've known that for a bit, and perhaps you have too. So before I dive in further, I want to share an anecdote with you about a sailor and his ship. Now, this sailor, he constructed his own boat, his own vessel, piece by piece, and he was incredibly proud of the work that went into it, and the ability to master his craft. And when he finished, he dropped it in the water and he set sail, and he made the harbor and the surrounding seas his world. He would navigate the ship all around the area, and that was essentially where he stayed until one day he heard rumors of treasure and adventure out there. And that's what got to him. What if, he thought, I've been playing too small? What if I've outgrown this little area that I've become so comfortable and accustomed to navigating? What's more important? The safety of the harbor or the opportunity outside it? He knew the answer, right? But he also knew that the boat that he made, that little vessel, it couldn't sustain itself out there, right? In the distant oceans where the waves were bigger and the winds were stronger and things were more turbulent. He knew if he wanted to venture out towards the horizon, he would have to bring that ship in, rip it apart piece by piece, and rebuild it again. And so that's exactly what he did. He gutted it, he ripped it apart, plank by plank, and his heart ached. This was years of work. Things were stable. The ship, as it was perfect for navigating the harbor. But he also knew, again, that if he ever wanted to point that compass towards the horizon, it was time to rebuild. To build a vessel more agile, better equipped for the rough waters and the unknown. And so after stripping it down, he built it back up. And yes, it was different. There were plenty of question marks, but that was the name of the game. He put it in the water and off he went. And the idea, the moral of this story is that sometimes life calls us to strip down our vessels to its parts, to its most basic components, and rebuild it again so that we may point our compass towards a new horizon. Which brings me back to the point at hand. One of the most interesting things about creating for the quote-unquote personal development genre or niche is that people assume because you are documenting and philosophizing and talking about growth that you have it all figured out on your side of the fence. And that simply couldn't be further from the truth. What it does is provide a beautiful opportunity to keep your eyes open, to experiment, to explore, to iterate, and then most importantly, to share those learnings and lessons with others, to inspire them to do the same. Right? Charlie Munger says, you are your own experiment. There is no blueprint to life. Just a willingness to push into the unknown and see for yourself what works and what doesn't. So what I'm going to do is share 3 very specific ways that I'm reinventing my world or rebuilding my vessel. And the point here is absolutely not to say this is the way or this must be done to achieve success. The point is, sometimes life calls for a realignment, understanding that you've deviated in some way from that North Star, in that not only are you capable of recreating yourself to align, but you have the courage required to do it. So let's start with business. And I don't even like calling it that. It's a creative outlet. And when done correctly, it's the most precious thing I have. It's a vehicle to share my thoughts with the world, to create meaning and impact. But when done incorrectly, it becomes sort of a purgatory of sorts, a car without wheels. See, long story short, I've been a storyteller, creating media aimed at inspiring and helping my listeners. You can call it a podcast, a channel, a media company, call it what you will. The crazy thing is, it was fun. It was a portal to share what I felt were the most meaningful things in my life. It felt free and exciting and new until it achieved its highest point of success. And that's when it became this sort of system that required maintenance, right? Systems, they require attention and more parts and people. And before you know it, you're focusing on the operations. You're focusing on making sure the car is moving smoothly. And you forget to look at the GPS and ask yourself, where do I want this car to go? It's time to go all in on inspiration and creativity. That brings us to this last month. I sent an Instagram story out asking if anyone knew creative videographers. And a mutual friend named Ashley introduced me to Brandon, who lives down the street and has talent like few others and a love for the creative process that mirrors my own. And what's even crazier is what he told me about his journey to get to this point. And I thought it was so powerful that I asked him if he'd step out from behind the camera and in front of it to share the story.
Before I even did videography, I was listening to your channel. And dude, it's crazy that we're working together because I reached a point in my videography career where I didn't have a place to live. And I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't have a plan. I was really scared and I had bills. So my friend Ashley reached out to me and she said, come live with me in Eugene and we'll take care of you. You don't gotta pay rent. Like, we'll let you live with us for free and we'll take care of you. You don't got anything to worry about. We'll help you build out here. And that saved me. That saved that saved me. And it gave me a way out. We became best friends and she's just so cool. And every morning she would play Eddie Pinero videos. And it was like our morning routine. It would like get us hyped up for the day. And after that, we would just go crush the day. So it's wild that I'm working with you now because Ashley sent me your story where you were looking out for a videographer. And I was like, no way, this is gonna work. I was like, this is actually gonna work. I know it is because it's meant to be, because it's a full circle moment.
This channel contributed to Brandon's recreation in a sense, and now he's contributing to the channel's recreation. Life is just too short to not go all in on what you love. And this revamp, just like before the channel quote unquote blew up, I believe will put it right back on target. Next, let's talk about reinventing from a fitness standpoint. So until not that long ago, I considered myself a runner. I love running, I always will, but that was the extent of the identity. And anytime I try and venture beyond that, anytime I would try and do any type of weight training or anything like that, resistance training even, injury, constantly, to the point where I just sort of gave up on even trying, right? Eddie, be a runner, do runners things, clearly that's your lane. Until I moved to Arizona and surrounded myself with talented people in the health and wellness space who helped me really get beyond that limiting belief They help me put systems in place to reinvent myself physically, diet, supplementation, a new workout regimen, just a new way of looking at life.
Rolling. We're rolling.
All right, so in the name of reinvention, we're gonna go to a little street, probably a half mile up the road, there's not a lot of cars, and do some sprints. So the reason this is significant, the reason I'm including it in this, is because in the past I'd run. I'd put my running shoes on, just do 8 to 10 miles, enjoy the sun, listen to the music. It'd be sort of therapeutic, and it was comfortable to me, is what I knew. But because my goals have changed and I'm trying to change physically, this is a sprint workout. So I think it's a series of like 10 to 12, 30-second sprints or something like that. And I want to bring you along with me, show you that I'm walking the walk and not just talking the talk. So let's go do it.
Running the run.
Running the run, baby.
Let's do it.
It's different for sure, but one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, hands down. You just feel different when you walk into the room and your shoulders are, a little bit broader. Just like, my business, it required a reinvention, a death of the old and birth of the new. And lastly, I reinvented myself from the standpoint of recovery. I used to be work all the time. That was my identity. I never shut off. I never created space to breathe. It was just always go. And it's like, I wonder why I was always sick or injured or so frequently facing burnout. And it's because, the ability to step away and recover isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. If work is swinging the axe, recovery is sharpening it. And I had to see myself not as a product of hustle culture, but as balanced, refined, and methodical with my time and my actions. So tangibly, what does that mean? Well, I'm gonna go back to Charlie Munger's quote, "You are your own experiment, see what works for you." There's been trial and error in my life, probably beyond belief, but where I've landed now is sauna and cold plunge for healing the body, for reducing inflammation, for just letting sore muscles rejuvenate so that they can give me the strength and power that I need and back me up at the gym or when doing difficult workouts, whatever that may be. Journaling, or even just sitting without a phone, right, to reflect and prioritize. It's amazing how many obvious opportunities surround us, but they go unnoticed because we simply don't stop and think. We don't pause to look. And the last piece of this is creativity, like totally detached from outcome, right? It's picking up the guitar, songwriting on my own time. Again, with no result in mind, just being present, enjoying it. And what I've found is that recharges, my energy and ultimately inspiration. So if you're gonna work hard, you need to make sure you create time to heal, to recover, to re-energize yourself, so that, when it comes time to exhaust energy in a meaningful way, you're prepared. There's an identity shift for sure, a rebrand, but a necessary one. Because if you don't listen to life voluntarily, life will find its own method for slowing you down. And its way is very rarely the ideal way. One way or another, it's going to get through though. So just like that ship making its way towards new horizons, ask yourself, what aspects of life call for recreation? What components of your world should be born again? There's just no better time than now. And while the transition might be turbulent and scary, while the unknown might intimidate, it's all untapped opportunity. It's all oil under your feet, waiting for nothing more than you to find the courage to reinvent yourself, to start that new chapter, to begin again. The pain of hesitation often hurts worse than the very fall we're afraid of. And when you learn this, you can be proactive in mitigating that pain, the self-induced torture that is waiting, the agony of knowing something more is required of you, but refusing to act. Because that little purgatory is a special kind of hell. Check this out, quick metaphor. We'll call it the man on the high dive. So this man wanted to jump off the high diving board at the community pool. So he walks up and he begins slowly ascending the ladder. His hands, sweating against each metal rung as he makes his way up. And below, only a few minutes before, the entire thing seemed manageable. Fun, even. But now, as he makes his way to the top and stands on the edge looking down at the water below, this simple activity now feels impossible. Everything's different. The air is much thinner up there. His heartbeat thuds in his ears, right? He wraps his toes over the rough surface of the board, gripping it like the ledge of the side of a mountain. And he's telling himself, okay, it's time, go, just jump. But his body's refusing. He turns, glances back down the ladder. He's got that sort of chirping in his ear. Hey, you could just climb back down. People do that all the time. No big deal. And then, something relatively unexpected happens. A boy, let's say no more than 10, starts making his way up the ladder. He gets to the top, kind of peeks his head over the board, and bright-eyed, obviously unbothered by the height, and he asks the man, hey, are you gonna jump? And the man, pretty embarrassed at this point, says, well, I don't know yet. And the kid shrugged, and in complete innocence, right, just speaking his mind, goes, that used to happen to me. The longer I'd wait up there, the harder it would get. And the man laughed, but he knew it wasn't funny, it was true. Bothered him. And suddenly another realization crept in, right? This is not about the jump, but about the weight of standing there. Because just like the innocent child suggested, the longer he waited, the worse it felt. And that feeling already had him in crisis territory. It's not just the fear, but the frustration, the doubt, the slow gnawing discomfort of knowing he'd climbed all the way up there. Would he really just turn back? He looked down at all the eyes at the pool staring up at him. What a situation. Right now, the guy's in a place of limbo, right? It's like, do you step into the courage, do something you've never done, or do you back out entirely and, retreat back to the only world you've ever known, taking some perhaps regret and what ifs along with you? Because that is the thing, right? Fear doesn't just stop you from jumping. It chains you to perhaps the worst place of all, the in-between. Not quite safe, no, but certainly not free either. And sometimes that place, that limbo between who you are and who you could be, hurts more than the fall ever could. He started realizing this with increasing intensity. The mental discomfort had gotten to the point where, the fall is preferable, right? So he took a breath, and before his brain could talk him out of it, before fear could take hold, he stepped off the edge. And for a moment, there was nothing, right? Just stillness, weightlessness. And then impact. The water of the pool swallowed him whole, cool, refreshing, washing away every ounce of doubt, right? He broke the surface, gasping for air. And then he felt it. Joy, relief, pride. That feeling when you do what you've most needed to do. Because the truth had always been waiting for him at the bottom, right? The pain of hesitation had been far worse than the fall, which seems to be the way of things. This is not exclusive to our friend on the diving board. I'd venture to guess we all have those little diving boards in our lives. Some greater and far more consequential than others. You know, they come and they go as we navigate life, but they're there consistently. And I can only speak to my own experience, right? The biggest obstacles I face, they rarely are quote unquote mistakes. Usually, they're a product of moving too slow, waiting too long, thinking too small. I was having dinner with a friend of mine a few weeks ago, kind of joking about this particular area that I'm stuck in, right? Hamster on a wheel vibes. And he goes, nah, man, you're not stuck. You're scared. And my first thought is, what? Right? It's defense mode. It's like, no, I'm not, actually. My brain goes into how I identify myself or how I see myself. I'm like, think about all the torture I've put myself through over the years. Are you kidding me? All the growth, intentional suffering, just for the sake of becoming the person that I knew I could be. Just for the thrill of climbing the ladder, you're gonna tell me I'm scared? And then I thought about it, right? While that may be true, and you can't negate battles fought in the past, that was one mountaintop. But that one mountaintop had just become life, right? And you can stay there and you can call that home. Or you can continue evolving, seeking out new mountaintops. Sometimes we don't even realize we've been stagnant, right? Especially if it's one of life's blind spots, which, funny enough, was precisely what was creating that anxiety. It was craving growth, standing on that diving board. And life requires less contemplation up there and more jumping into pools. I just needed to hear that. And I truly cherish things like this, these little wake-up calls, these moments that shake up your worldview. They direct you to a better version of yourself. So what I advocate that you consider is whether there is any of that internal conflict happening right now in your life that you can bring awareness to. Whether you've been standing up there looking down at the jump for just a little too long now. Perhaps life is waving you forward, pushing you on. You've been ignoring that call, thinking about what could go wrong, gazing down below and feeling like the bottom is light years away. Because the solution, my friends, will almost never be further contemplation, right? It's in momentum, mobility, action, allowing life to take you by the hand and educate you. Free yourself from that in-between. Because the impact of your feet hitting the water might shock you, sure. It might be startling. Might even leave you a little red, right? Who knows? But the freedom from knowing you can, from knowing that the heights weren't enough to stop you, that you got the experience, the adrenaline, the rush, the excitement as you made your way through the air, that's what life is about. So remember, wherever you stand, whatever jump currently awaits, any impact into the pool that calls you will be less severe than the pain or even suffering of hesitation. The purgatory of being indecisive. Because after all, no decision is still a decision, and perhaps the most painful decision, the most costly of decisions. Jump knowing that you're leaping not just away from stagnation, not just away from that discomfort or that pain, but further into life. We are simultaneously gods and worms. It's a quote from Abraham Maslow that I was originally introduced to when reading Ernest Becker's book, The Denial of Death. And it's one of these concepts that has completely flipped my worldview on its head. Because, to put it simply, this is something we all feel, this tension or this juxtaposition. But we don't even realize we're feeling it, the duality. We are finite beings with expiration dates entangled in this web of infinity. We are ticking clocks, somehow dropped into a forever that's beyond our comprehension. We are spirits connected to a divine, blessed with a godlike ability to see the unseen, conceived via little projectors behind our eyes. We're taking in our surroundings, sure, but we are also projecting out that vision, real-life directors on the film set that is life. Oh, and by the way, doing this beneath slowly decaying flesh, right? A meat suit made of the same material as dogs and birds and worms. While our minds soar to the infinite, our bodies fade away, soon to be given back to the earth, where our vessels will become nothing more than dirt for worms. And I've touched on this a few times over the years, on this podcast, on YouTube, mainly because how could you not, right? But I've never known what to do with it, which I think is one of the points of Becker's book, that juxtaposition is almost impossible. Right? Those godlike creatures, neatly packaged in earthly material, no different from the animals running around the earth we often pity and look at from afar, admiring the, I guess, sheer cruelty of nature. Well, ready or not, here is a pivot. This is going to be fun. I've always felt that few are able to tackle life's greatest questions like artists can, to explain the unexplainable, and particularly comedians, because they can sort of touch on this feeling, things we've always known at a gut level, but never been able to express. And one of my favorites is Bo Burnham. I think the man's a genius, and basically he writes songs, a lot of them sarcastic, kind of poking fun at different aspects of everyday life. And one of his songs is called White Woman's Instagram. Now, that's the demo he's kind of picking on. But the metaphor is obviously for all of us, humanity as a whole, and that's evident as you go through the song. Right away, it starts going into the trivial, sometimes vain, generic things that are posted online. For example, he talks about avocados and golden retrievers with flower crowns and quotes from Lord of the Rings incorrectly attributed to MLK. I mean, it's hilarious. In the chorus, he asks, am I in heaven or is this a white woman's Instagram? It's clever, it's funny, it's all the things. But then comes the bridge of the song. And it kind of smacks you in the face because it abruptly diverges into this deeply meaningful post. A girl puts up a picture of her mom, and the write-up talks about her mom's passing and how much she misses her and how difficult it is to merely go through life every single day without her mom's presence and being on the front porch with her. And it's getting a little bit easier, but Mom, you'd be proud of the person I'm becoming, right? It's this beautiful tribute to someone who clearly means the world to this girl. And you can't help but feel broken open, right? Almost embarrassingly so, because the beginning of the song is just so intentionally dumb and trivial, and you're sucked into this little piece of reality that's like, whoa. And then he immediately pulls you back out and starts talking about posting goat cheese salad. and, quote, incredibly derivative political street art. It's this roller coaster, right? But so is life. And I think that's the message. It dawned on me the other day, I have no idea if he meant to or not, but this song has been stuck in I can't stop thinking about it. It's been like 3 months that I've had this thing on in the car. It's a little bit weird, but there's something about it that it pulls me in. It's so intriguing to me. And the light bulb goes off. It is the perfect encapsulation of this balance of, the tightrope we walk that Ernest Becker alluded to, where life is, or at least certainly can feel, so trivial and so dumb and generic and even meaningless. Like, we're gonna die in 80 years. Who cares? But also, so beautiful and meaningful. Comprised of the blessings of being with those around us, the people that mean the most, the things that light us up, the chance to pursue purpose, the gift of being able to leave this place a little better than we found it. And there is just nothing trivial about that or meaningless about that. Those things are a miracle. Nothing and no one could convince me otherwise. And so what? Right, I've settled on the acceptance of this truth. Power lies in embracing both sides. Accepting the roller coaster for what it is, leaning into the absurdity without losing sight of depth. But then conversely, embracing depth without drowning in it. Because yes, we are dirt for worms, and yes, we are God-like beings. Both are true, and if both are true, then every moment, no matter how big or small, has meaning. The avocado toast, the morning light hitting your coffee cup just right, a text from a friend that makes you smile, these things are not insignificant. They are in fact proof that we are here, that we exist. Proof that even in the face of impermanence, life is not only worth living, it's worth living fully. And at the same time, the grief, the loss, the deep yearning to make those around us proud, they're not a distraction from life. They are life. They're why we show up. They're why we keep going. They're why we love. So what do we do with this paradox? Well, we live in it. We let it all in. We laugh at the ridiculousness and sometimes cry at the weight of it all. We take none of it too seriously while also understanding that all of it matters. And maybe, just maybe, that is what it means to truly live.